During the latest Q&A session, former interim lightweight champion Justin Gaethje made it clear that his focus remains firmly set on securing a fight with Ilia Topuria. When asked what's next for him, Gaethje revealed that he initially hoped to face Topuria in January, but due to circumstances beyond his control, the matchup never materialized. Now, he's setting his sights on the highly anticipated UFC White House card, which he believes would be the perfect stage for their showdown. Gaethje expressed his frustration with the uncertainty surrounding Topuria's next appearance, explaining that he doesn't know when the reigning lightweight champion plans to return. According to him, only Topuria and his team have that answer. Still, Gaethje emphasized that if the UFC truly wants to deliver a monumental event, scheduling his fight with Topuria on the White House card would make perfect sense. He described the matchup as an ideal combination of star power, national pride, and competitive significance, noting that Topuria's growing global popularity and his own loyal fan base would make it one of the biggest fights of the year. Highlighting his dedication to the organization, Gaethje reminded everyone that he has always been one of the UFC's most dependable and consistent athletes. He pointed out that he's never missed a fight, never failed to deliver excitement, and has always stepped up when the promotion needed him. That loyalty, he said, should count for something, especially when it comes to rewarding fighters who consistently perform and represent the company with professionalism and integrity. Gaethje also spoke about his pride in representing the United States on a global stage, saying that the opportunity to compete on the White House card would be an incredible honor. He believes his fighting style and attitude embody the spirit of American grit and determination, and he wants to showcase that in one of the most historic venues imaginable. He added that if there's any card that deserves a marquee matchup, it's this one, and a fight between him and Topuria would undoubtedly deliver fireworks. Ending on a confident note, Gaethje reiterated that he's ready to go whenever the UFC gives the green light. He made it clear that he's earned the right to face the champion and that fans deserve to see one of the most explosive fights possible. For Gaethje, the message was simple. He's done waiting and wants Ilia Topuria next, preferably at the White House. Everyone in the MMA community seems convinced that Ilia Topuria will make his first lightweight title defense against Paddy Pimblett. The matchup has generated massive buzz, with fans calling it one of the most exciting potential fights in recent UFC history. However, when you take a closer look at the official UFC rankings, the path to that fight isn't as straightforward as it might appear. Right now, there aren't many viable contenders standing in front of Pimblett, especially after Arman Tsarukyan was booked to face Dan Hooker in the upcoming UFC Qatar main event next month in Doha. That fight effectively removes Tsarukyan from immediate title contention, narrowing the field of options for Topuria's next opponent. The only other major name remaining near the top of the division is former interim champion and two-time title challenger Justin Gaethje. Known for his violent, high-pressure fighting style, Gaethje remains one of the most respected and dangerous competitors in the lightweight division. Still, even he appears to be weighing his options carefully, and it's not yet clear whether he's interested in taking on Topuria at this point in his career. This uncertainty might be the main reason why UFC CEO Dana White has yet to finalize Topuria's first title defense. When asked about the situation in a recent interview with TNT Fight Sports, White made it clear that no decision has been made. He stated that, as of now, the UFC hasn't booked the Topuria vs Pimblett fight and that the organization is still trying to determine what makes the most sense for the new champion's first defense. White emphasized that the UFC is constantly evaluating different possibilities and matchups, considering both fan interest and competitive merit before locking in a fight. White acknowledged that Topuria vs Pimblett would be an exciting and entertaining bout, one that fans around the world would eagerly tune in to see. However, he also hinted that the UFC might be exploring other options behind the scenes. For now, it appears the organization is taking its time to make the right decision regarding Topuria's next opponent. Whether that means Pimblett will get his long-awaited title shot or the UFC will go in a different direction remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, the lightweight division is on the verge of another major shake-up. In a recent interview with Diario AS, Ilia Topuria offered an honest update on his UFC future as speculation continues to build around his next title defense. The undefeated lightweight champion has been linked to several high-profile opponents, including Justin Gaethje, Arman Tsarukyan, and Paddy Pimblett. However, when asked directly about who he would most like to face next, Topuria didn't hesitate to make his preference clear. He wants Paddy Pimblett. Topuria acknowledged that there have been plenty of rumors circulating online but confirmed that nothing official has been discussed with the UFC yet. He explained that, as of now, there have been no formal negotiations or concrete talks about his next fight, and everything remains in the early stages. Topuria emphasized that once he receives an official call from the UFC and they begin discussing details, he will be able to share more information. For the moment, though, he described the current situation as purely speculative. Despite the uncertainty, Topuria expressed strong enthusiasm for a fight against Pimblett. He pointed out that there's a genuine rivalry and history between the two fighters, which would make the matchup especially compelling for fans. According to Topuria, the storyline and animosity between them would add intensity and excitement to the bout, creating the kind of spectacle that both the UFC and its global audience love to see. Topuria also highlighted his motivation to deliver entertaining fights. He said that while championship glory is important, he views his role as more than just defending a title. He wants to give fans memorable experiences every time he steps into the octagon. In his view, a clash with Pimblett would be the perfect opportunity to do that. Their contrasting personalities, fighting styles, and long-standing tension would guarantee a show that captures worldwide attention. He added that while opponents like Gaethje or Octagon represent strong challenges, the Pimblett fight carries a different kind of significance. It's not just about rankings or title implications. It's about settling unfinished business and giving fans a fight that has been years in the making. Topuria's tone made it clear that if he had full control over matchmaking, Pimblett would be his next opponent without question. In closing, Topuria reaffirmed his commitment to staying active and continuing to elevate his career by facing fighters who bring both competition and excitement. Whether the UFC decides to book the matchup remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: Ilia Topuria wants Paddy Pimblett next. During the latest episode of the BYM podcast, Michael Bisping and Paul Felder shared their official predictions for the UFC 321 main event. Both analysts agreed that Tom Aspinall has what it takes to defeat Cyril Gaethje and successfully retain his heavyweight title. They acknowledged that Gaethje is a very skilled and dangerous opponent, but ultimately, they see Aspinall's overall ability, focus, and mentality as the deciding factors that will lead him to victory. Bisping praised Aspinall's striking and athleticism, noting that when he's hitting pads, he moves like a welterweight, fast, powerful, and precise. He said it's incredible to watch a heavyweight demonstrate that kind of speed and technical sharpness. However, both commentators also admitted that the fight could become very interesting if Gaethje manages to keep it standing for long stretches. Gaethje's footwork, timing, and striking are among the best in the division, and Bisping emphasized that if the French fighter can control distance and tempo, he could create problems for Aspinall. Still, Felder and Bisping believe Aspinall's versatility gives him the edge. They discussed Gaethje's approach to training, referencing comments allegedly made by his coach, Fernand Lopez, who reportedly said that wrestling was not a major focus for Gaethje because he would never be the best in that area. Instead, they've prioritized refining his striking, which has always been his greatest strength. While Bisping didn't directly criticize that philosophy, he implied that in the modern heavyweight division, well-roundedness is essential. Bisping also pointed out that Gaethje has been spending time working on film projects and acting roles, which might have taken some of his focus away from training. He clarified that this wasn't a criticism but rather an observation that could influence preparation at the highest level. On the other hand, he described Aspinall as completely obsessed with the sport, fully dedicated to his craft, and without any external distractions. That level of focus, he said, is often what separates good fighters from great champions. In the end, both Bisping and Felder agreed there was no need for debate. They both confidently picked Tom Aspinall to win. They predicted that Aspinall's speed, precision, and composure would allow him to finish Gaethje and solidify his place as the most complete heavyweight in the UFC today. Renato Moicano recently took a shot at Gilbert Burns during an episode of the Show Me the Money podcast, pointing out that Burns is currently on a 4-fight losing streak. The exchange quickly escalated as Burns fired back, challenging Moicano to a grappling match and calling him easy money. What began as a lighthearted jab soon turned into a heated back and forth between the two fighters, both known for their strong grappling backgrounds and outspoken personalities. Moicano didn't hold back, mocking Burns for his recent skid and implying that his time at the top of the sport might be coming to an end. He sarcastically questioned Burns's continued drive to compete and suggested that his recent performances no longer reflect the fighter he once was. In his fiery rant, Moicano said that Burns keeps fighting even when he's losing, claiming that he refuses to acknowledge defeat and instead blames circumstances or bad luck. Moicano went on to say that if a fighter continues to lose while insisting he won, it might be time to take a step back from competition. The tension between the two only grew when Burns responded to the criticism by challenging Moicano to a grappling match. Burns, one of the most respected Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners in the UFC, dismissed Moicano's comments and declared that facing him on the mats would be easy money. Moicano laughed off the challenge, saying that Burns only talks about grappling after losing fights and that he tends to make excuses whenever things don't go his way. He mocked Burns's tendency to back out of opportunities, joking that he often blames being sick or injured whenever a matchup doesn't materialize. Moicano continued to ridicule Burns's recent struggles, saying he no longer commands the same level of respect he once did. He accused Burns of being more talk than action and insisted that real fighters don't need to call out matches on social media or make videos to get attention. Moicano also referenced Dan Hooker, seemingly drawing a comparison to emphasize that Burns has fallen behind other contenders in the division. The verbal exchange highlighted both fighters' competitive pride and willingness to stir the pot, but it also underlined the growing frustration Burns must be feeling after 4 consecutive losses. For Moicano, this moment was an opportunity to assert his own relevance and confidence while adding fuel to a potential rivalry. Whether their feud ends in a grappling match or an eventual UFC fight, the tension between Renato Moicano and Gilbert Burns is now firmly in the spotlight.